I'm Johnny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith & Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things. Right. Lasagna track day. I've been thinking about this.
Right.
I think it's going to be great. So, I was watching some cars go around a track a couple of days ago, and privateers, nothing pro. And I thought to myself, what would level the playing field with a pro driver and a normal punter, aside from having the same kind of cars and all that? And I thought, something that would challenge everybody is to have an extremely large meal just before going out and doing track work. Because, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought this could be great. And then I thought, what kind of food stuff would work? What would be the great leveller of man and machine, as it were? And I thought, a lasagna. A really stodgy, satisfying, but it doesn't go away in a hurry, lasagna.
Okay. Are you allowed to make it yourself and bring it along?
Yes, you are, but the scrutineers have to get involved if you do that. To make
sure
no,
that's fine. I'm quite prepared. Lighter. Just because, you know, I'm a very faddy eater. And I love a lasagna, but I love a lasagna that I've made.
Okay. So
don't want anyone else's lasagna.
So your stipulation for being involved in the track work would be, I bring my own las.
That's right. And I'm prepared for it to be scrutineered. There can be a control slice that lives in the scrutineer's office or whatever. I don't know. Whatever you want. It's just... Because also, I just think one of the reasons I don't like other people's lasagnas is because I've been burnt too many times by poor quality lasagnas made by other people, and I believe that I'm quite good at making lasagna. Also, there's a lot of debate about the layering strategy of a lasagna, I think.
Yeah.
And I believe that mine is correct, and I will brook no arguments. So it's also, if I make a lasagna, my wife will often just breeze past as I'm getting to the final stage of preparation and go, don't over cheese. And for a while, we used to have this idea that there was an over-cheese warning light that would come on if you were putting too much cheese on the top of the lasagna, because it does make it it can make it a bit greasy.
What, like the manifold heat warning light on Fast and Furious or whatever it is? Intake heat.
It's like that. I always imagine that the over-cheese warning light on a lasagna is a very old-fashioned little round, quite weak, you know, it's sort of almost, you have to sort of look twice. Is it coming on? Or is that just the light catching the lens? I can't tell. No, the over cheese is on. It's on. Stop. Too much cheese.
It's like overboost, isn't it? But over cheese.
Yes, over cheese.
I think you'd have to make sure you prep that with the curtains closed or the blinds down. So that you could definitely see the light. But
so... I'm curious, though, is lasagna the right way to go for this? Or could I just throw into the mix a full Sunday roast with apple crumble and custard for pudding?
Oh, gosh. Be massive.
Because that's going to make you sluggish.
That's a good one.
And, you know, for veggies and vegans, I'm sure you could do a sort of nut roast.
Oh, yeah.
But as long as it's heavy, it's got to be heavy.
It has to be extremely heavy to the point where... everyone has to sit down and eat together pre-race.
Oh,
so it's time, so they know what time they're eating.
Yeah,
etc. And also everyone has to put their name in a hat or a racing helmet. And every single race, there's an unfortunate wild card where on top of the meal that's already stipulated, they have to have a very thick slice of white buttered bread.
Oh, God.
you know those ones that sometimes older people offer after a meal where you're like, no, I've just eaten the largest meal. Why am I going to want an inch and a half of white bread now?
Yes.
Why would I want that?
It's an odd thing, isn't it?
It's very odd.
It doesn't make any sense. This is just here to damp it down, you know, to really make sure he's just pushing everything down into one big heavy knot in your stomach.
But the commentators,
I suppose you could offer a range of foods in this, but the main thing is that it must, and this is a deal breaker, it must be the kind of meal when you finish it, the second you put down your knife and fork on the plate, you exhale as if you're deflating. And it's a sort of satisfied but slightly struggling to breathe kind of noise.
But those are the meals where, when I lived at home, my dad would almost crawl from the table to the sofa that was about 7 feet away.
Why hasn't someone invented, for the enthusiastic Sunday lunch dad, a chair that's sort of...
like a transit.
It's a dining chair, but then it reclines slightly and it's motorised and it takes you over to an armchair. And there's some really elaborate cradle system that just slides you into the armchair so you can fall asleep while pretending not to be asleep.
And you'd have to watch probably a black and white film like Dam Busters as well.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, either the Grand Prix on, and that probably will keep the bloated dad happy, or yes, there's a black and white film. Passport to Pimlico's on. Brilliant. Excellent.
I'm going to mouth breathe to that.
Did your dad ever do that thing? My dad used to fall asleep in the armchair of a Sunday afternoon, but then you'd go, "Dad, you're asleep." He'd go, No, I was just resting. Just no. Absolute denial about a blatant fact. You'd just go, "Dad, we hooked you up to a heart monitor, and medically you were definitely asleep." No, just resting. Just resting whilst Kind Hearts and Coronets plays in the background to everybody who's awake.
That's probably tickled me, that has.
Anyway, yes, lasagna track days is I feel a bit clammy just thinking about it, though.
Well, me too, because I've just come back from Mallory Park, where the Retro Rides gathering event was on Sunday, and it was extremely hot. And lovely summer's day, but I did think to myself, in an older race car or a track day prep vehicle with maybe not enough through air, and if I just had a serious lunch and then I'd been pushed into that to try and do a PB, I think that would be troublesome. Full face helmet.
It's hot at the moment as well.
Yeah,
it's very hot, and I don't.
But different races would have different...
I'm going off this. I mean, I'd like to watch other people doing it. I do not want to do it myself.
Well, I want to watch people do it. And I think we've got a few friends of the podcast who are pro drivers. I think we should discuss the final details with them.
Well, they could definitely offer a pro's input into the refining.
But of course, if we did go lasagna track day, it would appeal to the Italian audience, because I'd want to expand it to a more European audience. And so I think Ferrari would probably take on the challenge of this.
Do you think?
Yeah, and by doing so, Lamborghini would be like, "Oh, go on then. If they're doing it, we'll do it."
It still baffles me, though, how Italian men, even into middle age, and I think Spanish men as well, this is this sort of so-called Mediterranean diet, isn't it? Which is, I guess they say a lot of vegetables and
the Mediterranean diet, I think, is wheeling a motorbike of under 125cc at will anywhere, and 7 double espressos a day.
We haven't discussed this, but when I was in Majorca for my holidays, I realised something that there is, and this is, I think, unique to the southern European countries, that the greatest skill a teenager in a southern European country has to develop is elegantly getting off the back of their mate's scooter before it stopped moving.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw this happening. I saw particularly a young woman on a scooter behind another young lady, and she, as they pulled up to her house, it was beautiful to behold. It was like an Olympic sport. It was you'd call it a dismount, I suppose, wouldn't you? But it just the way she got off, I was just like, holy shit. And also then in one move, she just kept moving through her front gate. The helmet's coming off and she's up to her front door, and I just thought, that is elegance. I couldn't do that if I practiced 1,000 times. And then I saw like a couple of young lads doing it as well. They just pulled up to a bar, and the kid on the back was off before the scooter had stopped moving. I just thought, I think he was wearing flip-flops as well. He just go, no, I'd be breaking an ankle doing that. And I thought, I bet you asked a lot of young people here or in, I don't know, Germany or Sweden or somewhere to do that, and they just go, no, I was going to no, can't do it. It's just not a thing.
No.
But almost you stop any young person in Turin or Madrid or on the Balearic Islands and go, you get on the back of this scooter and then I'm going to pull up here, but before I stop moving, because you get off and not fall over and break a knee. And they go, yeah.
Or split your shorts all the way round.
Yes.
There'd be that. Gosh. Because you're on your way to college. You don't want to spend the day at college with a completely open, shorted situation, do you?
I was once driving down the Marylebone Road in leafy London, and a woman had come off a scooter, not in a bad, I think it's just toppled off. Everyone seemed to be okay, but she was standing there on a traffic island talking to the car driver, whose car she seemed to have clipped, with her back to the passing traffic, and she was wearing sort of black smart work trousers, and they'd split down the middle, and you could see her bum.
Oh,
but I don't know if she realised this.
Oh no!
Because she was obviously still quite, adrenaline and upset about the accident.
Yeah.
So she was just standing with her bum facing passing traffic, perhaps oblivious to this. And I didn't know whether it sort of felt ungallant to not stop and mention this, but at the same time, it's hard to know the words to use.
Did you stop?
So I thought, I didn't. I thought
you were building up.
Oh, I love it! I can see your ass.
You didn't do the kind of the gentlemanly thing and take off your blazer. And
no, that's what. That would have been the.
Come on.
Do you know what? I didn't have a blazer with me. That's why I didn't do that.
What would Tiff do? That's how you have to think about it.
But then I think it was a sunny morning, and the sunlight would shine through the carpaccio of leather, and in fact, it wouldn't hide her modesty at all.
Of course, it would be like wrapping her backside in prawn skin, wouldn't it? It would just be like, I can still pretty much see
cling film.
Yeah,
what are you doing? This isn't helping. Hang on, I'll get the emergency faded Skoda Rally. That's what the emergency is. This is an emergency situation. It calls for the Skoda jacket that Tiff carries around with him.
What, for covering people's dignities?
Well, I mean, it definitely could be used for that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. There was actually something else that I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that in the hot weather that we've been experiencing,
yes,
I've realised I've turned into one of those guys that wears shorts that are the colour of a faded 80s Vauxhall. They're not. They were red at some point.
Oh yeah,
but now they're somewhat bleachy lilac. I don't know.
Yes,
pinky lilac.
Yeah,
and I like these shorts, but I did look down on myself yesterday and go, "You just look like an 80s Vauxhall that no one's ever tinkered." and I thought, oh, okay, oh well. Never mind.
Are they not also deceptively difficult to find something that goes with them?
Yeah, they are. It's just black or white.
Because I bought, not the same thing, they're not faded Vauxhall shorts, but I bought some teal shorts. And none of the T-shirts that I own match these shorts except possibly white. And I only have one white T-shirt. It's one of our merch ones. And I feel a bit weird sometimes about wearing that in,
You should wear it all the time. If you were American, you'd be wearing your own brand week in, week out, Richard.
Yeah.
If you really cared about the brand of Smith & Sniff.
Well, I do, yeah, and there's a couple, as we've said before, our new merch designs are on their way, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. But there's some of the new designs, which we will reveal soon, that I think they're really cool, and I would wear them, because it's not obvious what they're about, unless you know.
No. I do believe there might be a Prelude 2.2 themed
rumour has it. Yeah.
Best believe.
So I did see a picture of you wearing your faded Vauxhall shorts. Ooh, speaking of it, because the other cars that used to go in that way in the 80s were Volkswagens.
Yeah. Mark II Golf? Mark III Polo?
Yeah. Well, this reminds me, because I've just been in Cornwall. I saw some really excellent Cornish cars.
I bet you saw some unbelievably badly modified T5s as well.
Now, the strange thing is, admittedly, we went down. Now, I think I've sort of been a bit dismissive of going on holiday to Cornwall based on the fact that it takes 100 hours to drive there, and scoffed at those people, usually people who live in London. And they go, oh, it's no problem driving to Cornwall. We simply set off at 2:30 a.m. and we're there within the week. And you just go, I can't be bothered. No, yeah. I don't live in London anymore, and it's a bit closer. And I have to say that we had no problems driving down there, no traffic. It was all really nice. There's a new bit of the A30, it turns out, which has only just been opened. It's so new that the navigation in our car showed it on the map and yet refused to believe we were driving on it.
Oh, well,
the old road still goes alongside. So the car was, for a few miles, the car was in a state of visible bafflement at what was going on, which I found strange. But
I like
it was dead easy to get down there in the end, as it turns out. I mean, it's a bit of a long drive still, but it wasn't trafficky.
Well, Cornwall hasn't changed from where Cornwall was, if that's what you mean.
No. It's sort of like it's stretching.
Yeah, they
like
haven't put a pier on the end and pushed it all out a bit more.
Every time Britain lies, Cornwall gets a bit longer.
That's right.
Just to piss off people who have holiday homes down there. But I think we've talked before, haven't we, about Cornwall cars that like sort of older cars that seem to they're sort of slightly stuck in a time warp.
Yeah.
And they're shabby but well used in a nice sort of appealing way.
Well, it was typically because of the economy. You'd have them in Cornwall, you'd have them in Norfolk, and you'd have them in Wales. All the extremities of the UK map, and that's why my brother would always say that those are the only places where cheap old cars still exist. This was before Facebook Marketplace and.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? The internet, because that's the thing. It sort of used to feel perhaps it's because they were slightly more isolated, and so apart from anything else, that kind of removes you from fashion a little bit. So people there maybe just not fussed about having a new car because there's plenty of life left in an old one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I saw 3 what I thought are really good Cornwall cars, but I have a feeling. In fact, I'm pretty certain they were being driven by young people. And were essentially modern classics being used in every day, but with a sense of, like at the Festival of the Unexceptional, a lot of young people there.
Yeah.
So I saw a BMW E30 Touring.
Oh, that's
smashing.
A classic. That's a classic.
A very well faded Mark II Golf.
Yeah, that's a Cornish. That's a West Country hit.
And then we had a little grown-ups night out because we were staying in a house with some friends, and they said, we'll look after your kids if you want to go to the pub. So my wife and I went for a little walk with the dog up to the local pub and had a couple of drinks, and it was very nice. It was a beautiful evening. And we're sitting outside this pub, and pulling up outside, Toyota Space Cruiser from the 80s.
Oh, I love that.
I took a picture. I've got pictures of all these cars. I'll put them on the Patreon. But yeah, it was an amazing thing to see, but it was definitely being driven by some younger people. And I was like, okay, this is a conscious choice. This isn't just somebody who's had this. They're the second owner. They got it in 1989. They've had it ever since. But it was, I can't remember the last time I saw one of those.
But maybe, no, I can't. Yeah, I've probably lived in London the last time I saw one of those. I like that sort of thing because it's individual and affordable, and I suppose it kind of works with recession Britain, doesn't it, really? Rather than trying to kind of keep on top of the finance thing for a newer vehicle, you just go, no, do you know what? I'm going to go retro, and I'm sure it won't be that hard to run, and someone in my family will look after it mechanically, even if I can't. It's always one of your uncles or your... Well, I'm sort of that guy now. I've just realised I'm that kind of guy. It's making this really strange rattling noise. Can you just check on it? And I'll just climb underneath it with a head torch and go, you haven't got anything holding your exhaust up. That's why it's doing that. No, hang on.
You'll put on the head torch and then get the tin flute, top it up with Malbec, and under you go.
I have to say, I actually said this to you just before we started recording, that somebody at Retro Rides who was exhibiting in the enclosure that we had actually pulled up, and whilst saying hi and like shaking hands, he just lifted out of nowhere a big chubby bottle of Malbec and went, "This is for you." He goes. I'm sure there's a few jobs on the car that will warrant this. And it's like,
we'll see your way down this.
I need to stress to people that I'm not an alky. I don't drink Malbec every day or anything.
No, keep your mouth shut. This is saving you a fortune if people keep giving you bottles of wine.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to establish a mechanics cellar collection of wine.
Yes. Yes, right. But just do keep... I might start going, oh, yeah, I love doing painting and decorating while drinking single malt whiskey.
Yes.
Just keep mentioning it until people grease my palm with delicious scotch.
With the 2 car shows that I bought some camping chairs because I realised the last time one of them, inexplicably, one of them got caught in the lifting platform on the back of a Luton-bodied lorry, and it got crushed like Terminator's arm in Terminator 1.
What? I'm sorry. What? Let's go back to the word inexplicably, shall we? inexplicably, one of your camping chairs got caught in the tail lift of a Luton van.
Yes.
As it was going down?
As it was going up.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
So it got...
Well, I actually didn't do it.
It got picked up and then crushed in the sort of in the gap between the lift and the van itself.
Well, so yeah, it was when Mercedes Commercial Vehicles kindly lent us this sort of Luton-bodied lorry, which was...
it was yours!
Yeah, it was ours.
It wasn't just some stranger just reversed their Luton van up to your camping chairs and then went, oops, sorry.
No, but we were unloading a load of gear out, and I think it was my nephew might have pressed one of the buttons to lower or lift the tail, and they'd left all the camping chairs leaning against the lorry, and one of them kind of just fell into the mechanism and it just got completely mangled. And I was like, oh, so right, this weekend one of us hasn't got anything to sit on. Okay, right. And then, so I'd forgotten for at least a year that we needed another chair. And then I pulled in at a supermarket on the way to Bicester Heritage, as you do, to quickly buy one of my children's socks because I'd forgotten to pack them. And the other child said, oh, we haven't got enough camping chairs. I went, yes, you're absolutely right. We went in there to Argos and I just immediately started scanning all the specs of the camping chairs that they had in store. Like I was reading What Car, but it was What Camp Chair. And this one that I ended up buying, do you know what it was called? Because it's like the Caravan game, but it's just silly names that don't really apply to the product at all.
Was it called the Liberty or something?
It's called the Pro Action. and I just thought it's just a cheap camping chair. Why is it Pro Action? I mean, there will be action.
I was on a train the other week and there was a man with a bag and on it had a little tag, like a printed tag woven, and it just said proven performer. And I was like, has he put that on there or did it come with the bag? And if so, proven performer, what a strange name for a bag. I mean, I would say most bags I've ever owned were proven performers in that they kept the things that I'd put into them in them. They didn't, the bottom didn't fall out like a paper takeaway bag.
I feel like there's almost a kind of top of the pops, top 40 of just stupidly named things that we don't question in the moment. We often don't question.
No, it's true. Well, there's a lot of names that just become part of the furniture, and it's only if you sort of then scratch at them, you go, wait a sec. I mean, the one for me is always the Beatles. It's a low-quality pun.
Yeah.
And yet we've sort of gone, well, it's the Beatles.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sorry to just completely derail this, but I wanted to remember to read this out, because...
You can ring it out if you want.
Yeah. This is... It's a bit of a dovetailing of two things we've talked about recently, which is teachers' cars and Celica ladies.
Oh,
and this is a message from a listener called Alex. Alex says, "Hi guys, after listening to your recent episode on teachers' cars and Celica ladies, I had a memory come flooding back. In the early 2000s, my Year 6 teacher, Miss Serler, drove a brand new 7th generation Celica in silver.
Wow.
This stood out like a sore thumb in a car park of what mainly consisted of 90s saloon cars. Miss Serler was artsy, loved the Beatles, and wore her short, blonde, ex-cabin crew hairstyle with pride.
Brilliant.
Towards the end of Year 6, we were taking a school trip to the Peak District. Miss Serler announced that most children would be going via the coach, but she would pick 3 students to come with her in the Celica."
Oh, really?
This is incredible.
This is amazing. I'm getting excited. I wasn't even there.
I know. So Alex says, "Being the class clown, but one of her favourites, I was one of her choices. I opted for the back seat and was squeezed in behind the driver's seat. Somewhere along the journey, while we were listening to She Loves You, Miss Serler lost sight of the coach we were following. Instead of waiting to catch the coach up somewhere along the A38, Miss Serler opted to test the Celica's dynamics and reel them in more quickly. She dropped it a couple of gears, drove down the inside of 2 cars and took the upcoming roundabout with gusto. She then redlined the Celica through second, third and fourth before spotting the coach and diving in behind it. The car fell rather silent before Miss Surler apologised and asked us not to tell anyone.
Oh my gosh, this is brilliant.
To this day, I will never forget the sound of the 140 horsepower 1.8 bouncing off the limiter while John, Paul, George and Ringo sang about love and all that.
This is an indelible memory. Thank you for sharing it.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Alex's name is Alex Dunlop, and he is involved with a magazine called Rush. Have you seen this? It's sort of like Modern Classics.
Yes.
Rest in peace. Alex is involved in that. So shout out to Rush magazine. I've not seen it. I must get a copy of it because I support print and all that. But thank you for that story, Alex.
Viva la Rush. And you've reminded me, at the Retro Rides gathering yesterday, a guy came up to me and said, I've got a Celica lady and teacher story combined. And I went, okay. Oh. He went, well, she's not quite a teacher, but he said, my mum was a Celica lady and she was one of the dinner ladies at school. And I went, oh, okay. He said, but actually she was a Celica Supra lady because it was a Mark III and it had both of the names on it. And he said, when we were kids, like that was the coolest car. He said it looks so modern compared to everything else. I think it was red. Maybe it was faded like my shorts. I don't know.
Yes,
but
that's the new benchmark. Johnny Shorts red.
Yes,
for an advert for a faded Vauxhall or Volkswagen from the 80s. Since we're talking about people who work at magazines and also have good stories to share with us, that common thread.
Yes,
Rowan Horncastle. You know, Rowan works for Top Gear magazine.
I do.
.com. Sweet guy.
Sweet Rowan.
Guy. Rowan's written to us. He's also Rowan's sometimes on the Top Gear magazine podcast. So this is a rare example of another car podcaster writing in to us. But
hi guys.
I guess there's no home for this story on their podcast. Rowan says, I need to get a recent tale of a Devonshire Lane tete-a-tete off my chest, mainly for my own sanity. But I thought the car and driver combo might be of interest to your wonderfully esoteric podcast tendencies. Before you get too excited, no, I didn't come across Sade in Mad Mike's Bad Bull RX-8.
Oh, gosh.
There I was, 4 up, in a carmine red Porsche Cayenne S, running slightly late for dinner. I had to enter the ever-terrifying Devonian high hedgerow skinny tarmac single-lane gauntlet from East Portalpool to Southpool at pace. Inevitably, I came across another car, and the dreaded bumper-to-bumper stalemate began. My adversary was in a slightly ratty, sea salt-washed Peugeot 308cc. As I inched closer, I gestured politely, indicating that perhaps, in the interest of traffic flow and modern civility, the person behind the wheel of the crusty cabriolet might consider reversing. She was as stubborn as a what's-it stain, responding with a wry smile and a slight shake of the head, as if to say, not today, my dear boy, not today. She then proceeded to nudge closer and closer forward, exuding an aura of unshakable calm, but in that borderline blank-faced, psychotic, is she ever going to stop kind of way. It was then that my eyes widened in recognition. Could it be? Yes, it bloody was. Jenny fucking Bond, I shouted.
What?
The doyenne of royal reportage, the woman whose voice had narrated countless regal sagas, Jill Dando's death, and had once burst into life to impersonate Debbie Harry on Stars in Their Eyes. I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either.
She was the great intimidator of the Southwest. Would I have had her pinned down as a 308cc driver? No chance. I was sure she'd live in the shadow of Lizzie and be an L322 lady. Or at least an Aintree Green Freelander enthusiast. It didn't matter. She drove the old pug like a Challenger tank, and I had to somewhat sheepishly back up to a suitable passing point where she swanned by with the same sultry smirk she's used to sign off the news at 10. The top wasn't down, but I could still smell the faint musk of Rive Gauche Yves Saint Laurent, well-bred corgis and Earl Grey. I watched her disappear around the bend, a legend in sensible shoes and a sensible car. As I continued my journey, I couldn't help but chuckle. I had been bested by the indomitable spirit of royal journalism and the embodiment of journalism royalty. Jenny fucking Bond.
This is amazing. And I bet the jet trail of perfume after that car was
Imagine
immense.
it. It's like there used to be a home ec teacher in my school called Miss Gervais, and her perfume was so thick that you could sort of get a knife and cut cubes of it out of the air. And I think Jenny Bond's car might be a bit like that. Take a slice of Yves Saint Laurent with you to go. Rowan has offered proof of this because he's attached a picture. He found a picture on Shutterstock, the photo archive / library, of Jenny Bond sitting in her 308cc. It's
really
incredible. I'll put it on the Patreon. Yes.
See, I think if she's in the southwest, we know there's quite a few no-name full suspension mountain bike guys down there. Can you imagine if this happened? She passes by with the top down, a no-name full suspension mountain bike guy who's just about to fire up one of his rollies that he's just built. I remember that a lot of weed smokers, they use the term built. I've just built a reefer. I've just built.
Do they?
Yeah, well, they used to in the 90s. So in Bristol, they'll still do it.
Yes.
So imagine if he was just about to spark up one and Jenny Bond goes by in the CC. And like that scene from Back to the Future where the DeLorean's tyres leave two flaming trails.
Oh my God, yes.
it would actually it would catch on to the jet trail of perfume. So Jenny would have to make sure she was driving fast enough for it to never really catch her.
But what a sight to behold. It'd be more like the Red Arrows, though, because it would be the perfume wafts coming out of the open roof of the 308s.
Yeah.
Into the air. So it's an airborne version of the Back to the Future thing.
It's hairborne.
Wow.
Hairborne.
That's incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
Hairborne. Now, since we've lurched accidentally into emails, I first of all wanted to apologise to anyone who recently might have received an auto-reply from the Smith & Sniff email account, hello@smithandsniff.com, months, maybe even years after sending us an email. I haven't told you about this because you were away and busy, but I thought it's really bad because if people send an email to the Late Break Show, you have an auto-reply, don't you? Say thanks for your message.
Yeah.
And sorry if we don't reply, we're very busy, we get a lot of messages. But it's just polite. And I thought, we don't have that on Smith & Sniff. We do get a lot of messages, and it just seems good manners to go, hi, we've got it, we will read it, but, sorry if we don't reply because we're useless. But I couldn't, it's a long story, but essentially I screwed it up, and somehow I set up a rule, if people are familiar with how you do that in a mail programme. When we would get a message to hello@smithandsniff, reply with this. But I didn't realise that meant it would reply to every email we've ever received. Or so it seemed, because I suddenly saw my computer sort of seeming to be working overtime a little bit, and I was like, what is going on? Oh, no! And by the time I deleted the rule, I feel like a lot of people received this auto-reply, even though it was a bit after the act, including Tim Skipper. Tim was one of the people who we answered their question in the last Ottersott, or the one before. He's the guy with the Jag. His Jag had... he confirmed it had died because of rot.
Oh, so yeah.
I think our suggestion of getting an alley-bodied XJ was probably along the right lines because the rot will be less of a worry. But Tim just wrote to us and went, this is so on brand for you guys to send out thanks for your email. We might not reply just after you've read out my email on your podcast. And he's absolutely right, it is. But anyway, so sorry about that. But if you have got something to say, do send us a message at hello@smithandsniff.com. There may not be an auto-reply because I can't get it to work without it being catastrophic. However, before we move on from listener messages, we always say that our listeners know everything.
Because they do.
Because they do. And you may remember I mentioned recently about landing at Bristol Airport and being told to turn off all devices, and I was a bit like, it's a bit ominous.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I mentioned as well that the cabin crew seemed to be particularly keen that everyone had their shoes on.
Oh, really?
Which again, it doesn't fill you with confidence, does it? Because it suggests they think it might be about to go belly up. A few listeners got in touch about this. I'm not going to say any names because they all work for airlines. So there's, I can't give them shout outs anyway. So thank you to the people who wrote it. I'm going to read this one from a listener who says that for over 20 years they've been flying Boeings and Airbuses into Bristol Airport. It's one of the nation's airports most impacted by what we call low visibility operations, which is where we have to set the aircraft to land itself because we won't actually see the runway before it's too late not to hit it.
Wow.
This is what we call a Category 3 auto land. And in the aircraft you flew from Mallorca on, that means the decision to land or go around is made at 0 feet in fog/cloud so thick that it means you can only just see a bright runway light aimed at your face from as little as 75 metres. The typical touchdown speed is 140 knots, which is 161 miles an hour, or 72 metres per second. So you're trusting the autopilot, all the sensors and the radio signal receivers to guide a 70-ton machine in which you can barely see anything more than 1 second ahead. You need special training, a fully serviceable aircraft, and a runway specially equipped to achieve this safely, which I have done many hundreds of times at Bristol.
Goodness me.
So the gist of why this happens at Bristol is because it's 620 feet above sea level, so when there's low overcast cloud, Bristol Airport is actually in the cloud, and because it's adjacent to the Bristol Channel, which is a large body of shallow water, you get all that kind of open, you get kind of cold and warm air and stuff meeting each other, which is why you do these Category 3 autolands. But our listener says in these conditions, as a long-standing precaution, we try to eliminate any threat of signal interference from the 180 people in the back with powerful little radio transceivers in their pockets.
I was going to say that's a completely valid comment. I mean,
yeah.
I'm mesmerised at the complexity and the danger of this.
Well, when you say 72 metres a second, you go, bloody hell, that's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
He says, or she, could be. So the listener says it's never been shown that modern GSM phones can or will cause a problem, but it's a risk that we can eliminate by having them all powered down. So that's what we do. All airlines are the same in all parts of the world. And while most people in the industry think this is nowadays an unnecessary precaution, there is no airline, regulator or pilot who wants to be responsible for relaxing the rule in case there is a disaster. He also says, and I guess this relates to the having the shoes on thing, there's also a tangible benefit to the phones off rule in that the precaution actively involves the cabin crew in the awareness that there is a landing in thick fog. And if anything goes wrong, or even just taxiing, there's an evacuation. Post-evacuation supervision of the passengers will be more difficult. The fire trucks will take longer to find us to start tackling any fire, and thus the situation may become, inverted commas, unstable compared to how it would be on a nice summer's day when the boys in blue can race full pelt straight to us. So I'm guessing the shoes is just, it means people can get off quickly.
Get off, yeah.
And be corralled more easily instead of people blundering around in bare feet.
I think,
anyway, well,
because it's Bristol
that's
Airport,
really interesting.
Yes. I worry about Bristol themselves knowing about the level of technology used to land these aircraft. And I was also going to add, if the runway lights aren't sufficient in inclement weather, as they say at railway stations, I was thinking, what about a legion of no-name full suspension mountain bike guys with sort of homemade Olympic torch-style beacons lashed to the back of the rear carriers?
On closer inspection is actually a massive bifter.
Yes, it's huge, and they all cycle either side of the. And obviously, because they've had a few cans and energy drinks, they're properly like trying to pop to 18-speed wheelies.
Yes,
and so they can guide the aircraft down just from them. And even if it's extremely cold, you know that one of them's going to be topless because they just don't feel the cold, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So
yes, and despite being incredibly thin as well, still.
Do you know, I get the number of people that come up to me and want to talk about no-name full suspension mountain bike guy. I feel like I've had incredible. This thought. I was going to say this off air, but I'm going to say it now. I feel like we should arrange a charity bike ride for all of Smith and Sniff people. We all have to rock up and do a bike ride on no-name, rusty-chained, full suspension bikes, and we do a ride from A to B, an agreed B, for charity, and we probably lose our voices from laughing at just such a stupid act. and you get more points. Yeah, you get more points for an extremely strained plastic bag holding on to 8 cans. And also there'll be a wheelie contest.
Yeah, but also extra points for no hands wheelie.
No hands wheelie, that's just suicide.
I feel like our liability insurance here may be quite punchy, but because I've seen it done, and I feel like this is the guy to do it because he's on the bike so much, he's really honed his skills.
Yeah.
Did you watch, by the way, have you watched much of the Olympics? I know it's over now, but did you watch much of it when it was on?
I watched as many highlights as I could. It was mostly the highlights because I watch it when I have my dinner in the evening.
We had it on, and we were down in Cornwall, and we were staying with some friends. So there were 5 kids, and when they'd come in from tearing about outside or going down to the beach, rather than just let them go on tablets or whatever, we'd be like, no, we're going to put the TV on. We're doing it old school, and they were mesmerised by the Olympics. It was quite wholesome in a way, but
good.
I was up late. Everyone else had gone to bed, and I was up late watching some highlights, and I hadn't really clocked that skateboarding was in this Olympics.
Yes, and it was phenomenal.
It's just incredible.
It is.
I kind of wanted an explainer because I was watching this and the commentators were just carrying on as if they were commentating on something that I think most people understand, like football, or the pole vault. You'd sort of know the parameters of what they're trying to achieve. And skateboarding, it's like you just go, this is incredible to watch, but I don't. The commentary to me was all, lots of, obviously the moves have names.
They've all got very strange names.
Very strange names. So they were going, okay, he's kissed the cat. Yeah, smudging the butter. And frigging geese. That's lovely. Okay, he's bumped Neville Chamberlain. That's delightful.
Yeah.
I don't understand anything you're saying, and yet I can't stop watching this because it's so... And there was that guy representing Britain. I know he didn't sort of place in the top 10, but he was 51.
Yeah,
and I just thought, fair play to you, my friend. I can't remember his name, but he was giving heart to middle-aged dads everywhere.
No, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and it is pure artistry. I thought I very much enjoyed that. I enjoyed the table tennis.
I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I watched a bit of judo as well.
There's another one I could have done with a bit more explaining, although they were pretty good, the commentary team, at filling in some of the gaps, was the taekwondo.
Yeah, I watched some of that.
Because that, to me, I was just like, what? I'm sorry, but what is happening? This is very confusing. I mean, I liked the sort of theatre of it. They have them arrive on a balcony, and then, but there's some of it was quite confusing.
I was just worried about people breaking their toes. That's all I was worried about for the whole time.
Well, I was like that watching a 51-year-old man skateboarding at Olympic level because I was just like, dude, your knees, come on.
Can I talk about autocorrect car names? Because I obviously I use a keyboard a lot, as do you.
Yeah.
And I can't stand autocorrect. I've mentioned this probably many moons ago when we used to do videos of Smith and Sniff. I just can't bear a computer trying to correct me. It really, really riles me instantly.
Yeah.
Don't you fucking tell me what to do. I know exactly what I'm trying to do. And so it's reached peak fury for me. So I wanted to put it out to all of our amazing listeners of like, what are the worst, strangest alternatives to a car name? So you type a car name in, make a model, and what does the computer kind of think you're trying to say? So I'll tell you what I typed in the other day. I typed in Pagani Huayra. Okay?
Ooh.
What does the computer reckon I was really trying to say?
Pieces horse box?
Close.
Okay.
Paganism guarantee. So, and I thought to myself, I used to play, and I'm sure Wesson, my son, plays a video game with cars where they can't name the correct names of the cars, so they call them something different for lols.
Yes.
They used to do it in Grand Theft Auto, I think.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking the paganism guarantee is up there as a really savage sports car. And I want to know from other people, maybe you can write to us, hello@smithandsniff.com, of what's the greatest autocorrect car name that you can come up with.
It's also because these autocorrects sometimes can seem quite sophisticated, that perhaps we assume a greater sentience, and so it's more annoying when they get it wrong like that, because you then go, what do you think I'm going to be saying with paganism guarantee in it? What context does that have? Because once on my phone, I was sending a message to my wife, and I wanted to say Christmas turkey. So I did Christmas, and then I went TU, and its prompt was turtle. And I was like, who's eating a Christmas turtle at this time of year, you fuckwits? But of course, it doesn't know. It's not that clever. You're just ascribing a certain intelligence to it, because sometimes it can seem quite clever. But actually,
I think we've all had a Christmas turtle at some point, Richard. It would usually be... In fact, it was probably straight after the lasagna track day. But
probably, yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask... That's a good one, by the way, yes. Do write in with your car name also correct comedy. I've got in my notes in my phone of things to talk to you about, and I feel like you asked me to write this down.
Oh.
It just says Burton Coggles.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a village near where you live?
Yeah, it is. It's up the A1, quite near one of the sex shops called Pulse and Cocktails.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know if they're related, but I love that name. I always chuckle when I go past Burton Coggles, because it just sounds like a sort of Toad from Toad Hall, slightly colonial gent who's always jolly and eccentric, probably drinks port after breakfast.
Yes.
And enjoys a pre-war car with no regard for the speed limit.
But hang on here, because I was going to save this for the next Ottersop, but I'll do it here. A listener called Neil Hallworth sent us a question. He wanted to know, as we occasionally do, the gentleman from the 60s. It's a different time, you see. 60s. He's asking, do these 60s gentlemen have names? He says, is it the well-known socialite Jonathan Kingpin Smythe of the Abingdon Kingpin Smythes and his faithful manservant Dick Bagslave? Dick Bagslave. But I think Burton Coggles could be quite a good name for the 60s, man.
He would be amazing. So, you see, I had a letter come through the door, and I opened the letter with a selection of one of the knives that my father brought back from one of the wars. And when I opened up this scroll, it said, "Dear Mr. Coggles, I would love to welcome you to the kayak race, the inaugural kayak race that we hold in Henley. Please bring kayaks, and there will be a charity dinner, of course, as usual."
Did they have kayaks in the 60s, or would it have been?
We just simply called them canoes, Richard. I don't understand the difference.
Would it have been made of? Would they even been fiberglass, or would it have been wood in those days?
Fiberglass was a very new experimental industry, so we tended to fear the new industries, and I stuck to varnished skin. So I used to have a frame of mahogany, and I used to stretch skin over it and then just simply pour a combination of varnish or resin over this stuff. And it worked so well until you hit rocks, and then it didn't.
But my friend Peter Bruntingsleeve turned up one year at the river, and he'd got this canoe made of fiberglass, and he said, "Oh, it's tremendously fast. Do you have one?" I said, "No, but wait a second. The hardtop for the Spitfire is made of fiberglass.
Oh.
I'll go and fetch that." And so I did. Didn't have any shoes on, just walked barefoot down the lane, grabbed it off the car, off we went. Well, do you know what? It was such a wheeze. Of course, my friend Mary was with me, and unfortunately she fell off in the rapids and perished. But that was okay, because we accepted it back then. It was a different time.
A completely different time. Do you know, the first time I ever used my British Seagull two-stroke outboard was on a coracle, of all things, because I couldn't find a correct boat. And you know, the amusing thing about a coracle is it really has no direction. It goes wherever it wants to go. It's like a hot air balloon. You bloody put the thing in the air and it'll just go wherever you want it to, or wherever you don't want it to. So...
Of course, Roger Fellingswipe, a dear old friend of mine, he actually lost his leg on the propeller of the bally thing. I just... It was going so fast, and he was in the water, and I was flailing around like a silly chump, and yes, off came his leg, and he just laughed it off.
Oh, he had a hand that looked like a chicken's foot from memory. claw hand. Because, you see, we were playing funny games after some scotch, and he decided to try and touch the propeller of the plane. And I said, don't do this. It's a terrible game. Don't do it. I tell you, don't do it, man. And you know what he did? Richard, he did it. I tried to pull his hand back, but he shoved it into the propeller. And that's why he has a chicken claw hand.
Blast it all, this kite bites, he chuckled to himself as blood spurted across all of us. How we laughed.
But you see, it was different back then. There was a young man with a bicycle and a bell down the road who worked for St John's Ambulance, and he came to see us with some handkerchiefs that he turned into a, shall we say, tourniquet. And it did work for a while. I enjoyed the day, but I won't do it again.
Where were we?
I wanted to talk about Recaro going sadly bust. And
yes.
And I was really surprised to hear this. Dismayed and surprised. I don't know the ins and outs of why they've filed for bankruptcy. Because it got such an incredible legacy, and their child seats are the best. I've loved their child seats.
Are they? Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, but it's funny because by coincidence, just before this news broke, I had flown back from my holiday at Airbus, and I noticed the seats were made by Recaro. But that bit of Recaro continues. It's Recaro Automotive that's gone bankrupt.
But this is like a real
for insolvency, hasn't it?
Yeah, but this is such a sad thing, because like Recaro makes some of the best seats and some of the best fabric for seats. And in fact, the car that I saw yesterday at Retro Rides was this amazing customized 190 Cosworth Mercedes, and it had. He'd had the interior reupholstered with the Recaro Spectrum striped fabric. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it looks like an 80s graphic equalizer or a Commodore 64 Sunset.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And I thought, we can't let Recaro die. And Recaro sell clothes that I saw.
Yes, I know, because for a while I was being advertised them on Instagram relentlessly, and to the point where I was like, oh, screw it, I'll just buy one of those Recaro T-shirts. Never got round to it, but I don't think that's why they've gone bust. I imagine that was just a licensing deal to someone else. But they weren't actually, the car seat part of Recaro was not particularly big. They were saying they had just over 200 workers, so it's not a massive company. But they do make sort of OEM seats. The problem is, I suppose, they're partly, in the 80s, a Recaro seat was a real status symbol, wasn't it? Whether it was factory fitted or whether it was something you put in yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe fashion sort of, because they were so fashionable at that period, fashion kind of moved away from them. Maybe that didn't help their business. But also, I think they were sold to an American venture capital firm a few years ago. So I don't really know the full story there. But they were still in business. And I'm not OEMs.
I'm not affiliated with Recaro, and I'm pretty sure you're not either.
I'm not.
But I feel like we should all rally together and try and buy something from Recaro. I'd like to buy. They still do their classic seat range, which has an official approved by Volta Roll badge on it.
Does it?
Yeah, and there's a picture of him on the Recaro Automotive website actually smiling, which I thought was good.
No.
Yeah, I saw it.
Bloody AI.
I'm looking. Yeah,
next.
They've stretched his face to make it look like he's extremely happy. Yeah,
he's actually immediately instructed his lawyer to take action against this. I cannot be seen to be possibly smiling. It would ruin my reputation.
Yeah. It says Recaro Classic seats approved by Volta Roll. Walter has always been a racing giant, literally. At 6'4", he certainly lives up to his nickname, the Tall One. In order to achieve the perfect seating position, he installed Recaros in his very first racing cars, a BMW 2002 Ti and a Porsche 911 S. Because back then, the sporty performance, quality and safety of our seats was as unique as it is today. When it came to choosing his seat, he had just one condition. It has to be a Recaro, capital letters. This was a fortunate decision. For the 1985 San Remo rally, Walter managed to survive the most serious of accidents of his career, but was relatively unscathed. Of course, if it had been the 60s, it wouldn't be. The word unscathed wouldn't have been
scathed.
Yes, it would have been. Nobody ever
don't say
says
scathed, do they? No, I know.
You're always
it's one
unscathed.
of those words where. Yeah. No, there's James May always used to sort of mentally collect these words where there's only one version of them is used, but sort of disgruntled, but no one's ever gruntled.
No, they're not.
It probably doesn't derive from that. We need Susie Dent on the line to sort this one out. But yes, definitely, no one goes, "Oh my God, I was scathed in an accident." I do wonder with Recaro, part of the problem for them was that at least some of their business was predicated on aftermarket sales.
Yeah,
and as cars have got more sophisticated and with side airbags and things built into seats and stuff like that, fewer and fewer people replace the seats in their hot hatchback with, sort of aftermarket racier ones. I don't know if that's sort of contributed to their demise. I'm not sure. I haven't.
Oh, I'm sad. I would like to try and I'm going to buy something Recaro this week. I've decided.
Okay.
All right.
Well, just a couple of Recaro seats and have them made into armchairs.
That's a fine idea.
That you can sit in after you've had a very big lasagna at home on a Sunday.
They might do a Track Day Lasagna affiliated seat. I think that would be perfect.
Let's hope so. All right, well, we should bring this into land using a Category 3 Autoland system so that we don't smash into the ground. Before we go, however, I have three things to tell you. The first is that Johnny's got a new project on the go in which he's trying to get our favourite female singer to collaborate with a Midlands-based 70s glam rock band under the working title Slade. Meanwhile, he's also doing The Late Break Show. Lots of excellent videos on there. What have you got for us?
Slade, that's just an awful name.
It sounds sort of damp, doesn't it? I don't know.
It sounds like, I don't
slimy.
know, if you were to catch a big eel and you're trying to get it into the boat.
My hands are all Slade now.
Yeah. Oh, awful.
Anyway, yes, what's on the channel? Sorry.
So, well, I mean, I've just recently done a lovely sweet barn find Fouds Orion gear, a.k.a. the Onion. And if you haven't caught up on it already, I would love you to watch my abandoned Citroen 2CV Resurrection project, which there's 2 parts out now. And by the time you listen to this, there's maybe a chance of a third one. We've already recorded it. It's already been edited. I'm not good at promoting my own stuff, although
just go to the Late Break Show and whatever's there, watch it.
Can you do that?
Simple as that.
Can you just do that, please?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks.
Second thing, a few months ago now, a listener called Steve Kellett, of his own volition, added some excellent guitar to our end music. But at the same time, another long-term listener and patron, an all-round sweet guy called Connor Fliss, who is a guitarist, said, I'd love to add some guitar to your new end song. And I sent him the Logic Pro file with all the stems on it. And he did some guitar in it. And then I saw Connor at one of our London live shows, and I said, there was so much extra guitar on the Logic file you sent back to me, it kept crashing my copy of Logic, and he very politely pointed out that there were so many layers of stupid vocals on the original that it kept crashing his version of Logic as well. So it's been a bit of a technical nightmare. In the end, I've extracted he did guitar harmonies, sort of like more recently popularised by the Darkness, but so I've extracted those because they were my favourite bit, and I slapped them onto the existing track with Steve's guitar already on it. So it's a bit of a battle of the guitarists now.
Wow! But
I think it sounds quite cool. So thank you to Connor for doing that, and thank you to Steve as well for his existing work on it. Connor has a band called Swarmed. They're a sort of growly metal band. So if that's your thing, go and check out Swarmed if you haven't already. And the third thing I've got to say is, Melanie Griffith, the actor?
Yes.
Did you know that when she grew up, she had a pet lion?
What?
Yeah, it was called Neil.
It wasn't called Dave Richards then?
No. Oh, God, I haven't mentioned... Yes, we'll come back to this another time, but lots of listeners got in touch about lion-headed people in the car world.
I've read a few of them, and it's made me howl with laughter, I have to say.
They're very good.
I think I know the one at the top of the current leaderboard, which we'll come on to.
Oh, yeah, there is. There's a real leader has risen to the top. But, Melanie Griffith grew up with a pet lion called Neil. He weighed 180 kilos.
Oh, my gosh. Was she married to Mel Gibson, or did I make that up?
Was she, or was she married to Kurt Russell?
No, because he's been with Goldie Hawn since the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Almost.
Since the 60s.
Yeah.
Was she? I don't know. Yeah, maybe she was.
I must promote my son's TikTok.
Oh, yes.
I promised him I would mention it. He decided it'd be a great idea to film his dad doing some bad cooking and put it on TikTok. It's called My Dad's Average Cooking.
Since you mentioned it last time, I think a few listeners have checked it out of their own volition, so hopefully he's getting some better numbers.
Unfortunately, he's pressurising me to cook more. And I said to him, I only know how to cook 5 things. That's the issue. So I've got to learn to cook more. So that's my new challenge. That's my promise, Rich.
Interesting. Okay, but in the meantime, Dad's Average Cooking on... Where is it, TikTok?
It's on TikTok. And Late Break Show is on TikTok, so you can go on there for that if you want to. But we're not on TikTok, are we?
No, sadly not, because we don't understand it, because we're old. But that's that for this. Melanie Griffith was married to Don Johnson.
Oh!
Twice, in fact. She went back for more, Richard Burton style.
Seriously? They're still married now?
No, she doesn't seem to be married to anyone at the moment. But she has been married to Antonio Banderas as well.
Oh, wow.
Divorced him in 2015.
He looks like the kind of guy that would have a modified MR2.
Do you think?
In Spain. So you'd go on holiday and he would screech into a fuel station and he would have either no top on or a vest. He'd be listening to some high-energy salsa.
I think he's got a Mercedes S-Class Coupe.
Do you?
Yeah, and he smokes thin cigars in it.
Well, I'm going really heavily modified MR2, second generation. Okay.
Okay. Well, if anyone knows what Antonio Banderas actually drives, do please get in touch. hello@smithandsniff.com. Yep. We will be back on Friday with another Ottersot answering your questions, and we'll do all this again next Monday. Until then, goodbye.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, guys. Bye.
So you've enjoyed this podcast, but you've had a thought. Is there a way here today that you could show support? Well, you could join our Patreon. What wonders that it brings. Early shows and extra notes on that side of things. You could buy our merchandise. We've mugs and hats, but still no ties. One day we will make those pies, but in the meantime, guys, hey guys, like and subscribe, and maybe leave a nice review. Like and subscribe, we know you know just what to do. Like and subscribe, we don't want to take the piss. Like and subscribe, but we were told to ask for this. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
What? Did you set off on that not knowing where you were going?
Yeah, sort of. It's because Weston walked in the room and I was like, oh, I'm immediately distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.